Hello, my sweet virtual friends. It's been a minute. You guys had your BOY testing the past 2 days. I have missed you. I hope you guys had an okay time getting through your testing. And happy Friday. You finally made it through the week. You only had 3 days this week, but still, that's all good. That's all good. All right, my sweet friends. So today, you guys will be testing over the timeline of the events leading up to the Declaration of Independence. So I just wanted to kind of go over everything with you and do a little summary for you guys and just kind of refresh your memory since, you know, your head's kind of full of math and reading BOI testing right now. So I just kind of want to refresh you and we will be all good. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and show you the timeline that I have for you just so that you can see it while I'm talking. Okay, all right, my friends. So here is your events leading up to the Declaration of Independence timeline. Now, with this timeline, we just are highlighting the most very important dates that we have. Now, let's begin at the beginning. In the beginning, I really more so want to recap with you because we kind of need to think about the 13 colonies and them coming together and the French and Great Britain wanting more land, and they are just getting ready for that French and Indian War. The French and Indian War passes and they sign a peace treaty, the Treaty of Paris. And unfortunately, though, even though Great Britain came out on top, they were in debt because of how much money they spent. So they decided to start taxing the colonists. Now, this is when this timeline starts to come into play because in May, on this very first one, in May of 1773, Great Britain's Parliament passes the Tea Act. Now, this was when Great Britain realized that all their taxations that they had previously done to gain more money to help with the war debt was just not working because the colonists were very angry. They were uproaring, just things were not looking good. So Great Britain decided to pass the Tea Act. Now, the Tea Act was where they taxed the tea. The colonists could only get tea from Great Britain. And that showed the colonists that Great Britain still has a lot of control over them. So in December 16th of 1773, the second date that we have on our timeline, the Sons of Liberty, who are kind of our modern day activists, they are fighting for something that they believe in. So they are doing their own form of protesting by dumping 342 crates of tea into the Boston Harbor. They were dressed as American Indians when they did this. And this was when we called it the Boston Tea Party. How ironic, because, you know, tea parties tend to be lovely and nice, and this was obviously not. We were dumping all the tea. We were getting all kinds of rid of it. So the colonists that dressed up as American Indians, the Sons of Liberty, they were protesting the Tea Act that Great Britain's Parliament had passed by dumping the tea. So because of this behavior from the colonists in March of 1774, on the third one on our timeline, the King of Great Britain sees this inexcusable and awful behavior, and he decides to pass the Intolerable Acts, which is a bunch of laws to basically keep the colonists even more so under control. He felt that, okay, this behavior is inexcusable, it's intolerable, it's ridiculous, so let's put some more control down on them. And that's what happened with the Intolerable Acts. So because of the Intolerable Acts, in September of 1774, the First Continental Congress met. Now, the First Continental Congress was all the 56 leaders of the 13 colonies coming together and having a big meeting to discuss what's going wrong and to figure out a plan to help the colonists. And they had ultimately decided that if you mess with one colony, you mess with them all. And this was like a kind of moment because in April 19th of 1775, which will be our 5th point on our timeline, is when Lexington and Concord came about. Now, Lexington and Concord is famous for the shot heard around the world because when the British troops were marching all over Massachusetts and Boston, which Boston is in Massachusetts, it's a city inside Massachusetts. They were marching all over to find the rebels and to be able to arrest them and take away their weapons. Side note, did anybody think of Star Wars at this point? All I can think of every time I mention Lexington and Concord and the fact that the British soldiers were going to find rebels and arrest them and take away their weapons, all I could think of was Star Wars, because that's what happens in Star Wars. So I had to put a side note in there for my Star Wars babies. Now, with that being said, the British soldiers were coming. However, they were met by the colonists. They were met, and then it was just kind of a stare down. And then all of a sudden, a shot goes off, and then the whole battle just comes about and ensues, the whole thing. But that's the thing, though, is that nobody knows who fired the first shot. And so it's been a huge mystery ever since. It's crazy. So because of that, have you noticed that in our timeline, there's a lot of cause and effect happening? Now, because of Lexington and Concord in May of 1775, the Second Continental Congress met. Because the First Continental Congress, that meeting didn't go very well. So they needed to come together on a second meeting and have an even better meeting and discuss, okay, there's still something going wrong here. The king is irrational. He's not reasonable. He does not care for our feelings. So they met, the 56 leaders of the 13 colonies in the Second Continental Congress, and they decided that we're going to make the Continental Army. Okay, so they kind of named it kind of after the meeting that they had. So the Second Continental Congress made the Continental Army. Now, in this army, they have a general. You should remember him. He is our first president. Mr. George Washington was the general for the Continental Army. And after shortly, well, not really shortly, it was almost a year later, in January of 1776, a man named Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense. Now, this is my absolute favorite one because Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense because he knew that independence was the only thing that was going to genuinely help us. Now, he decided that his best way to spread the knowledge of independence by telling everyone about independence, what the government's going to look like, how it's going to feel, how it's going to be afterwards, what's going to happen, like all that good stuff. After writing a whole book about that, he ended up just a few months later completely changing the minds of so many people in the 13 colonies. So many colonists in the 13 colonies had their mind changed and were ready to go. Now, I'm not talking just, oh, okay, yeah, we deserve independence. Yeah. No, that's not where they were. They were like, yes, let's go. Like they were at that point, okay? And then obviously shortly later, we get to our Declaration of Independence. So now, my sweet friends, I kind of just went over the timeline with you, and I hope that you guys had wrote it down earlier this week, like I mentioned. But if not, it's okay. I know that you guys are going to do your absolute best on this test, so do not stress, do not worry. You guys are so amazing. You guys are astounding me with how amazing you are through all of this COVID-19 situation. You guys are so amazing. I can't. So that's why I'm so excited for when you guys eventually get to safely come back to school. I am very, very excited for that. So with that being said, I hope that you have a very happy Friday and good luck on your test, guys. Bye.